I wrote down the track so you know it's fat.
What is up? It is your boy Artin from F1 Warren Uncut. Today we're gonna do a different kind of video. I don't think anybody has ever done this in the F1 scene before. Not really sure if there is any content creators actually doing this, reacting to other people's videos and yeah, all that stuff. So we're gonna go through Peter Brook's F1 my Manifesto. I have watched this video already, so I'm just gonna go through a few of the text that he has on certain things, which is like you kind of going off the deep end here a little bit, because this doesn't make any sense in any realistic. Let's just go through it anyway. All right, maybe let's just start with the. I can't even remember what he says at the beginning. Let's just see what he says at the beginning.
So bringing in a lot of new ones. The sports image is rapidly changing, and upper management has brought in increasingly controversial policy decisions. Here, I want to lay my cards on the table and outline how I would change Formula One if I had the power, i.e. as FIA president. Being FIA president would give me powers far beyond those just needed for Formula One, and my concern does not lie with amending other FIA certified series such as WEC, the WRC or CIK, but being CEO of the Formula One group also does not give me enough power to implement my vision. And to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is fire Stefano Domenicali. And in his place as CEO of the Formula One group, we're going to put somebody who is eternally popular, doesn't gaslight the fans, and actually knows what they're talking about, i.e. Sebastian Vettel.
Okay. You're gonna put somebody who allegedly an advocate for bioefficient fuels, but none of them has mentioned the fact that you can make liquid hydrogen. That essentially would mean that the only thing that comes out of the exhaust is H2O in gas format. And honestly, during his last few years, he was pandering so much to the whole idea of he's essentially a communist. That's what he is. Sebastian Vettel is a communist. Full on blank communist. He's the type of guy that would open up the Karl Marx Manifesto of Communism or whatever the fuck that shit is called. I can't remember what it's called from the end, but hashtag dirty more. Anyway, you want Formula One to be even more communistic than it already is. It's already communism. It's like if a team does better than anyone else already, they're screwed. If you want to put somebody in charge, let it be an actual old school racer, not someone who pretends to be an old school racer like Seb does. Seb pretends he wants to be an old school racer with screaming V12s and shit, but yet he's like, oh, we gotta use sustainable fuels, we gotta take care of the environment, we can't have gas guzzlers, we can't use private planes, we can't use cars, we gotta ride a bike everywhere. Like that, what he actually did that at the end of his career too, I think he was using bikes to get to and from the hotel to the tracks and shit. He wasn't driving. He actually wasn't driving. I don't get it. I don't understand. There's like two sides to him, but they are like competing against each other. There's like one end, one big gas guzzlers that make lots of noise, and the other end, efficient, climate friendly, eco-friendly, whatever. No. And eco-friendly with what? Synthetic biofuels? No, you can actually, if you use the liquid hydrogen idea that comes from Japan, that Japanese have been working on. I think it was Toyota or some shit. Don't quote me on that. It was Toyota. You take that with the old formula of big gas guzzling engines, but we built them to have hydrogen, to be able to run on hydrogen with maybe some turbochargers on top of that. Like big 3.5 liter V10s, V12s, V8s, 1000 horsepower or some crazy shit. Or more even, if you want to implement the hybrid system. But why would you do that, low-key? Why would you do that if you already have an efficient engine that only spits out water? Unless you somehow want to put like some kinetic energy, MGU, HK thing on there that can harvest that heat to put on the battery. And then create an extra 150 to 200 horsepower or whatever. ERS system-ish thing. Or curve system. Like a push to pass system maybe. But with energy made from the wasted heat. Which you have something like that. You could do that. We're gonna get into that later. Need a raw race or someone who doesn't care about any of the politics or any agendas whatsoever. So I say, put Kimi Räikkönen in there. Low key, high key. Put Kimi Räikkönen in there. Put his I don't give a flying F about this, that, third, just wanna go out and race. Just wanna race. And then he can then delegate whatever. He could give Seb the role of figuring out new ways of being more efficient. Give him some other role. I don't know. They need people under them too, right? So Seb as head manager, no way. It gotta be a raw racer, like a Kimi Räikkönen type. Mika Häkkinen maybe. Could be a good one too, actually. Now that I think about it. Yeah. Mika Häkkinen or Kimi Räikkönen, any one of these guys, if any one of them that want to step up. Anyway, let me stop rambling.
The F1 calendar is becoming increasingly congested, mostly with races that don't warrant being on it, despite constant cries about improved sustainability. Drivers such as Max Verstappen are getting dismayed with the increasingly long calendars, which now run from March to December. And one thing we need to remember is that as well as the drivers having to spend most of the year living out of a suitcase and constantly fighting jet lag, all the team staff, journalists and pundits have to do this as well. So, from now on, each season will contain a minimum of 16 and a maximum of 20 races, and a maximum of 25% of these can be held on street circuits.
Yeah, we do have a problem, because the reason for the amount of races that we got right now is because of money. Economics. The more races you hold, the more money you get in. But at the same time, you have to put more money out to pay mechanics, circuit arrangers, all of that stuff. Economics. And then at the same time, you have to think of the spectacle, the show. And it's better for the show to have lots of races. It's better for the spectacle, better for Formula 1 to have more races. And possibly better for economics, for the economy. Because the revenue that all those races, all those people buying merch, buying, whatever they be selling in the circuits, and also ticket prices being insanely overpriced, low key, versus everything else, apparently. So, would that work? 16 to 20 races only in the year 2023? I'm not sure, but let's keep going.
Regarding the races themselves, any prospective host nation should meet the following criteria. They should be able to financially justify the expense of building a circuit and putting on a race, and a good race at that. There should be demand from the general population to host a race. The country should have a strong motor racing and automotive heritage and culture, and the country should not currently be committing any major human rights abuses. On that basis, all the Middle Eastern races are being dropped. Bahrain can host pre-season testing, and any of the other circuits can be used as private testing venues by teams if they so desire, and that is it.
But this is the issue with pretty much completely cutting out all the Middle Eastern races. All the oil and gas and shit they put in their engines, they all come from there. Aramco, Saudi, they all come from there. So what you're saying is, you can get gas, you get the oil, you get the tires, get the rubber, whatever from there. But we can't hold the race there, because that's too much. And there's another problem. If you gotta get that oil from somewhere else, you gotta get it from Russia. And y'all don't like Russians either now, right? So that doesn't make any sense. And there's such a huge crowd of people there who got money too. So from an economic standpoint, completely ignoring races in the Middle East will never work in this day and age. They the one with the money, they got the power, and they got the resources too. Never work. Well, let's continue.
Sorry, Joe, but China needs to go as well, genocide and all. As good as the races can be, Azerbaijan has no motoring heritage, and the country is rife with corruption and injustice, which they're relatively good at not drawing attention to, so that needs to go as well. The United States...
Yeah, but they are also a major producer of oil. And again, China, major economy. And they even have a Chinese driver, right, currently in Formula 1. Good thing I'm not taking care of the economic side of things, because it's not going to add up.
The States can have one race just like everyone else, which will be held at COTA. Las Vegas and Miami are cringe, and they can be given to IndyCar. As well as changing the venues, the running order needs changing as well. There is nothing remotely sustainable about going from Imola to Miami to Baku, so now races will be grouped by continent.
That's just common sense thing, whatever. Technical regulations.
Where only one very specific concept, i.e. Red Bull's concept, works. I'm blowing the regulations wide open and also scrapping the cost cap to bring Formula 1 back to the days of the 1970s and 80s when the grid was constantly turning on its head as different teams came up with different ideas.
Now this is how you know that he's off the deep and he doesn't understand what is actually going on. Back then everything was fresh and new. Front wings, rear wings, turbocharged the engines, ground effect, whatever aerodynamics development of that was going so fast, and pretty much week in, week out, somebody was doing something new to the car that was never seen before, or yada yada yada, etc, 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 right? But that has kind of slowed down over the past, let's say 10-15 years. So him basically giving them free, letting them do whatever, and then acting like people ain't gonna make the same car like we're seeing now. They kind of copying this and doing this, and then two teams somehow end up with this almost identical car, even though they have never seen each other's cars, which means that everybody is still going to just do whatever the best team is doing. That's how it's always been, and there's no major innovations anymore, because there's really nothing really to innovate on anymore, because everything has already been done, unless we're talking about like movable aerodynamics or something, which would be the only thing really that would be innovative, because it's always been banned, it's always been outlawed. So that'll probably be the only thing. But then we have to factor in how fast the cars are going to speed. That would be insane, bro. If y'all think the 2020 cars was fast, if you remove all the regulations, just let them do whatever, how much faster they're gonna be than the 2020 cars? What effect will that have on the racing, on the drivers, tire manufacturing? Just those three things. There's probably a whole lot more that I can't really come up with right now. It will never work. It will be too much if we do that. And then everybody's still going to go for whatever the best team is doing. Trying to copy that and then make a car that basically looks like that. And all the cars is going to look the same. And it all comes down to little detail stuff. Like we're seeing right now. Let's continue.
For engines, the hybrids are being scrapped, and that technology can be left to WEC and Formula E. The two options for teams will be a 3-litre naturally aspirated V10 or a 1.5-litre turbocharged V10, both of which, and this is where Sebastian Vettel comes into play, will be run on synthetic carbon neutral fuels.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. You can go back earlier in the video. It's no, not the carbon neutral synthetic fuels. We don't need that. Liquid hydrogen, which will only give water coming out of the exhaust, which would then mean that it would be fine to use the big gas guzzling V10, V12s and shit like that. However, talking about being efficient and sustainable future and all that, then going back to 3-litre, 3.5-litre V10 and V12s, they use about, I don't know how much they would use in a race, probably close to 150 kilos of fuel. Don't quote me on that. Might be a bit less. Right now they're using about 100 kilos plus minus. Probably more like minus, probably 95 or something. Because they're underfueling the cars. Because of weight, obviously. The lighter you're faster, the faster you go. So, carbon neutral fuels, but you want to be as sustainable as possible. But no. It's gotta be turbocharged engines. And they could implement a hybrid system on that, but for like maybe a push to pass system instead of a DRS. But anyway, let's continue.
They'll be limited to 20,000 RPM, and turbos will be limited to 5 bar of boost pressure in qualifying and 4 bar in races. To account for the increasing fuel consumption and to minimise fuel saving in races, teams can now change their engine modes mid-race once again, with a maximum of 5 different modes permitted. And I'm increasing the maximum fuel limit from 110 kilograms to 120 kilograms.
See, nah. Nah. He said 120. They used way more than that back in the day. You could probably do it today with the technology that exists for that. Versus back then. Make this so that they would actually only use 120 kilos per race. But you're reaching it now. Anyway, let's continue.
Prepare all of your orifices for the return of this.
This guy is dreaming. And I kinda love it.
And this. Alright, buddy. No, that's not gonna happen. If we were to do that again, it's not gonna be like that. Let's continue. As much as I would love the idea, it's not realistic.
with flames spitting out of the exhaust and all that.
Gearboxes will remain semi-automatic and can now have anywhere from 6 to 8 forward gears and 1 reverse gear, and gear ratios can be changed as needed until the car is put in parc fermé. I'm also increasing the number of allocated engines and gearboxes for the drivers per season from 4 to 5, which combined with a shorter calendar means they can push them hard.
See, that is another problem when having those high revving engines, is that you're still going to have a limited amount of engines. And those engines back then were notorious for blowing up. Couldn't even last a whole race weekend with one engine. I know the technology is way better, but again, it doesn't make sense. Why? Why do that? I love the idea, but nah, fam. Nah. It won't work.
Harder and will have far fewer grid penalties. Teams running turbocharged engines will be allowed 6 turbochargers per season. For the cars themselves, I'm keeping the ban on movable aerodynamic devices, electronic drive.
Let me just add a little thing to it. Because of you still have a limited amount of fuel you can use for weighs 120 kilos. Then you have a limited amount of engines you can use. So what are you gonna use? A smaller, lower revving engine with a turbocharger that is automatically going to be more efficient and probably more reliable too. Have just as much power, if not more power, than the big V10, 3-liter V10. High revving V10. Less reliable. Probably. Hypothetically. Doesn't have the same fuel consumption as good fuel consumption as the turbocharged engine, which would mean that you can run that big V10 at full potential the whole time. Even if it has slightly more power at the peak, the turbocharged engine will have more power over the race distance. So people, engineers, and I'm trying to think a little bit like them now. What would they choose? You know damn well they're going to choose the turbocharged smaller engine, V6, V8 inline 4s. Yeah. You should have thought about that a little bit, Peter Brook. I thought you were smarter than that. Let's continue.
Aids and in-race refueling. They must still have a halo, roll bar, tethered wheels, etc., and the drivers must still be able to exit the car unaided in under 7 seconds. They must also have a minimum of 4 wheels and a maximum of 8. Yes, we are going there. When empty of fuel and the driver, the cars must have a minimum weight of 500 kilograms and a maximum weight of 800 kilograms, a maximum length of 5,000 millimeters, a maximum wheelbase of 3,500 millimeters, a maximum width of 2,000 millimeters, and a maximum height of 1,000 millimeters. Beyond that, as long as the car passes the crash and safety tests, do whatever the f*** you want. If you want ground effect, I'm all here for it. If you want an exhaust blown diffuser, start blowing. Hell, bring back F-ducts and second brake pedals if you think you can make them work. If you come up with something entirely new and it works, that's exactly what I want to see. We are in dire need of the kind of much needed creativity and ingenuity that Colin Chapman would have been proud of. Now,
man, this guy is stuck in the 80s and it is just, I don't know what to say, bro. Where does he think he's gonna go with this if it is the most, I know he isn't being, he must not be 100% serious about this idea. The cars he's going to produce, that this is going to produce, if it ever was to become a reality for real, would not even be drivable. by a human. Because they will be so fast and so dangerous at that too. That's actually a thing that he mentions later on about Spa, especially. No. Well, let's continue. I think we're going to jump to
Tyres. Pirelli need a bit of a kick up the backside regarding making tyre compounds drivers actually want to drive with. So, we're going to give them some healthy competition in the form of the return of Bridgestone and the return of Tyre Wars. It will remain as 6 dry tyre compounds.
Yeah, this is on the Tyre Wars, which means that the tyres are just going to have even more grip as well. Again, contributing to the fact that these cars was going to be insanely fast with movable aerodynamics, 6 wheels, 8 wheels, blowing exhaust, second brake pedals like the McLaren from 1998, active suspension, traction control, and oh boy. They're gonna be flying too or something, maybe.
With 3 available at each race, but there will now be 3 wet tyre compounds. Intermediates to be used on damp, greasy and drying circuits of minimal standing water, heavies for wet tracks of notable pockets of standing water, and extremes for circuits of widespread standing water. Another major inhibition to innovation and development is the lack of testing. So now, I'm allowing teams unlimited testing mileage during the season, but only at circuits not currently on the calendar, which will more than likely mostly be places like Paul Ricard, Ricardo Tormo, Jerez, Sakhir, Mugello, Yas Marina, and if you're Ferrari, Fiorano. At long last, so-called test...
Alright, Mr. I want Formula 1 to be efficient, but at the same time I'm gonna let them do whatever they want in terms of testing outside of the Grand Prix weekends on the tracks that we just mentioned, which will literally put Ferrari in the biggest advantage again. That's probably what Ferrari needs low-key in real life to do it again. Nah, bro. No. I don't know. How are you gonna talk about you want F1 to be efficient and carbon neutral and all of this, whatever, and then have Sebastian Vettel be in charge of it? Then at the same time, free testing. Burn as much fuel and rubber and engines and all the parts that I need for that. We can only use 6 engines for the whole season. What's the point in having that restriction? You're just gonna let them do whatever they want. If the testing, they can just use 15 engines in a week. Then that's what I would do. I would just throw a new engine on there every time with new parts on it. Test different specs and measure them against each other versus the dyno and CFD and versus wind tunnel with the aerodynamics, and just go crazy with it. I don't know if I can't remember if he mentions that in the sporting regulations. Anything about the wind tunnel or CFD restrictions.
The drivers and teams do not need nearly as much practice time as they are given, and have far too much data at their disposal, particularly if we're bringing back unlimited testing. So now, there will be one 90-minute practice session held on Friday morning. DRS is something I've always been divided on, as the number of overtakes between 2010 and 2011 rose dramatically, but it is a very artificial way of racing, and is very hard to defend against. With that in mind, every circuit will go back to having a maximum of one DRS zone, and the Red Bull Ring and Monza will be trialled as races run without DRS for the entire weekend. Presumably, with these new, much more open technical regulations, cars will be able to follow one another far
Much more open technical regulations, car will be able to follow much more easily. Meanwhile, they're gonna have movable aerodynamics and all this stuff. Blown diffusers, triple layer diffusers, secondary brake pedals, and goddamn active suspension, and all of this shenanigans. But they're gonna be able to follow easily. They're gonna have aerodynamics like in 2008. With sticky bits and whatever aerodynamic vanes to redirect the airflow and all of that fancy aerodynamic stuff that I don't really understand, but I can see it. I can see the cars, what they're gonna look like. They're gonna look insane. And be so damn fast. The turbulence of those cars going past is probably going... They will probably be able to feel the effects 8 seconds or something behind them. It's already a problem now. They get within, what, 2 or 3 seconds, they start to feel it. With whatever he's suggesting, the Peter Brook fella, it's going to be up to 8 seconds, possibly even more. Anyway, let's continue.
Are easier and have a bit of an easier time worming their way around Monaco. Regarding flags and race, grid is currently limited to a maximum of 13 teams, despite the fact we have not had 13 teams since 1995. This limit will stay the same, and the entry fee for new teams, which keeps on going up and up, will be reduced from the current $200 million to a very reasonable $10 million. Andretti are to be welcomed with open arms into the 11th slot. Formula 2 team Hightech are currently launching their own bid to join Formula 1 in the future, which will be considered for the 12th slot.
I'm not sure how you're gonna make that work, putting the prices down like that. He's essentially going to let teams that are about 8 to 10 seconds slower than the top guys in the Formula 1. What are you gonna do? Reintroduce the 107% rule so they can participate in practice and qualifying. But if they're not within the 107% rule, they're not gonna race anyway. So what's the point?
But the desire will be to have more manufacturer teams who are interested in researching and investing into conventional engines running on unconventional fuels. Most Formula 2 drivers are aware that their chances of getting into Formula 1 are minimal, so they either extend their Formula 2 career as long as their wallet can carry them, or they turn their attentions towards Formula E and IndyCar. This is an especially big dilemma if you win the Formula 2 title, as of course you then must retire. 2 champion Callum Ilott was supposed to get the second seat at Haas alongside Mick Schumacher in 2021, but that instead went to Humpty Dumpty, effectively ending his Formula 1 prospects and leaving him nowhere to go except IndyCar. So
This guy is off the deep end for real. He really is a communist too, low-key.
now, the 13th slot will be taken by a team controlled by the FIA itself, which serves no purpose other than to give seats in Formula 1 to prospective Formula 2 drivers. The incumbent Formula 2 champion will automatically be given a seat with the team unless they have been offered a seat with another team, and the second seat will be taken by another high-performing Formula 2 driver. At least one seat will be vacated at the end of each year, so there will be a high driver turnaround, but it at least means that every Formula 2 champion is guaranteed at least 1 year in Formula 1.
Yeah, but that seems probably going to be the slowest one on the grid, ain't they? Let's keep it real.
Think of it as our answer to Toro Rosso. As it is an FIA-controlled team, and to prevent accusations of bias or preferential treatment regarding technical development, this team will have a cost cap of $100 million per season. Revisions are going to be made to the prize allocation for teams at the end of each year.
Yeah, aka they're going to be the slowest team on the grid.
They were all eventually felled because of the
Alright,
million.
this is-
Fourth,
yeah.
100 million. Fifth, 90 million. Sixth, 80 million.
He should have put how much the prize money is now versus what he's trying to do here.
Which will be made of the same abrasive material as the runoffs at Paul Ricard, but without the seizure-inducing stripes. Regarding circuit modifications, the forest section at the Hockenheim Ring is being rebuilt. This time, substantial grandstands will be built in the trees to assuage one of the main complaints of that part of the circuit, and it also means that the Jim
Don't know about that.
Clark Memorial at the actual crash site will once again be easily accessible to the public. The mini banking at Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez
But the process needed to actually do that is gonna have to go through the government of Germany, the track arrangers themselves, whoever has ownership and the rights to the track, and the sponsors and whatever businessmen funding the track and funding the project, and possibly even the government too. How is that gonna work? How is that gonna work? How are we just gonna ignore all of that and then say, I want the forest section back at Hockenheim and I want them to not go through the stadium section at Mexico? Yeah, you did not think that through, did you?
is also coming back in place of that stupid stadium section. I think a few minutes need to be spent talking about Spa-Francorchamps. In light of the deaths of Antoine Hubert in Formula 2 in 2019 and Delano van 't Hoff in Frecker barely a month ago, both of which happened in very similar circumstances, discussions are once again coming up regarding Spa-Francorchamps' viability in its current form. The Eau Rouge Raidillon complex is arguably the most iconic section of track in all of motor racing, alongside the corkscrew at Laguna Seca, Maggots and Beckett's at Silverstone, 130R at Suzuka, and the carousel at the Nürburgring. This comes from both the challenge and danger of it. For modern Formula 1 cars, it provides less of a technical challenge than it did a few decades ago, when, for example, in 1999, the BARs of Jacques Villeneuve and Ricardo Zonta.
Yeah, but with the cars you want to create, it's gonna be absolutely insane. They're gonna go through there with a speed of like 320 kph, with insane movable aerodynamics, active suspension, and all of that. And if just one of these things decides to malfunction or not work properly, gonna have the biggest accident. Dog. Spinning off at 330 with no gravel traps, none of that. At Spa with those insane cars that won't even have any weight on them, because he's like, oh, let's get them down to like 500 kilograms again. Where's the crash structure gonna be? There's a reason that the cars have gained so much weight over the past 10 years. A lot of that is just safety things, crash structure, side impact strengthening, or whatever. It's not just the hybrid engines. No. It's for safety reasons. And that is why it is so hard for them to actually get the cars down in weight again. Because they will have to rethink the crash structure. What are they gonna do with all of that buffer in the chassis to protect the drivers? Isn't that why we said the Halo was alright, because it was protecting the drivers? So it didn't even matter that it made the car look like shit. It was protecting the drivers, so it was cool. And that added weight too. I think it added like 5 kilos or something. when it got implemented to the cars. Anyway, let's continue.
Honda both attempted to take it flat out and ended up crashing, whereas today it can be easily taken flat, but that does mean the exit speed is much faster. Spa-Francorchamps' geography creates rather unique weather patterns, as the surrounding hills form something of a rain shield, either trapping it in or out. But as a counter to that, the extreme elevation changes, something which is sorely lacking in a lot of modern circuits, does.
But wasn't the problem with those crashes that happened where drivers got hurt is that the cars have a tendency to jump back into the racing line after hitting the wall. You can't stop the cars from crashing, you can stop the cars from being sent back into the track so you don't get hit again by other cars flying by, which is what happened in 2019 at the F2 race. The car what hit got literally T-boned by another car coming through, which was, I think it was Carrera. I can't remember right now actually who it was that hit him. That hit Gilbert. I can't remember who it was that hit. Somebody hit Gilbert and it just set the car flying, and that was it. Because the car was sent back into the circuit, into the racing line. So you gotta find a way to stop the cars from being thrown back. That's what I think those Tech Pro barriers are for. But don't they have that at Spa too now? Those new barriers, or safer barriers like they use in America. So you are saying that even though there is all of that, cars are still being sent out into the racetrack after hitting the wall, which is where the danger is. You gotta stop that from happening. Can you stop that from happening? You don't have a problem at all. So maybe you need to reintroduce gravel traps, because that could stop the cars from, yes, that with the Tech Pro barriers that will literally hold the car in place where it crashed, because that doesn't set the cars flying backwards into the racing line again. They can manage to do that, problem is basically solved. Then it will need to be a freaky freak accident or something to happen to where another car is going to crash, going to T-bone another car standing still. Anyway, enough rambling.
The accidents that took the lives of Antoine Hubert and Delano Van 't Hoff, both of which were near identical in nature, were, I believe, caused less by the nature of the circuit and more by the design of the cars. Specific details regarding the nature of the two drivers' fatal injuries, or the damage sustained to the cars, has not been published. However, it is my belief that something needs to change regarding the strength and design of the side pods, as the safety cell around the driver is supposed to be near impenetrable, and neither of the drivers.
But you're trying to make the cars lighter. So where is the space for the strengthening of the crash structure gonna be? That's what they've been doing the past 10 years. But they still gotta do more, because he just said, Peter Brook just said, the things that the accidents are more down to the cars being at fault more than the circuit itself. But how are you gonna pull that off? If you're trying to lighten the cars and make them smaller at that too, doesn't add up.
Drivers were killed by impacts to the head, such as those of Ayrton Senna and Henry Surtees, so this is not a discussion about the halo. There is already work in place to strengthen the roll hoop on single-seaters, as Zhou Guanyu's failed in his infamous crash at Silverstone in 2022, and had the Halo not indirectly acted as a substitute roll hoop, he more than likely would have become the 46th man to have lost his life
Again, straightening of the roll hoop, more weight.
at the hands of a Formula One car. Just as with accidents or disasters in any industry, you learn from it to try and prevent it happening again, and side pod design is an area that does need looking at. There is little more that can be done at Eau Rouge and Radion in terms of modifying the barriers, and it already rightly has a large amount of runoff, as when it used to be grass and gravel that only amplified accidents, but I think it should stay. Fire Stefano Domenicali massively revised the calendar to make it sustainable and live up to the motto of We Race as One, scrap hybrid engines and bring back V10s and turbo.
Someone needs to do the edit on one. We race as one. We race to win. Being but a single unit or individual. Unit or individual. Okay. Being a single person thing of the class mentioned. Pronoun, a single person or thing. One. An individual. Okay. We raise as individual. aka we raise to win. Okay. First or lowest of the single in kind, same. Give me the earliest one. One or usually. So it can mean both things. It can mean individual, single person, or thing, or unity. Alright. One unique to win. Originally pronounced as only a tone alone. Alright, so yeah. 3 meanings, essentially. Being of a single unit or individual. So it can be a unit and an individual. One unique. The unique one. aka Neo the Matrix. Alright, we got that out the way.
While investing in alternative fuels, open up the technical regulations to maximise creativity, ingenuity and innovation, bring Bridgestone back as a second tyre supplier,
aka make those cars so goddamn fast that not even a human can handle them. Alright.
enlarge the grid, revise prize money allocation, scrap sprint races, make the stewarding roles full-time positions to improve consistency, revise flag and safety car rules to minimise time wasting and maximise racing time, reduce practice time drastically while also bringing back unlimited in-season testing, remove all...
Yeah, again, doesn't add up to wanting to be sustainable and the whole we race as one motto, which could mean 3 things as I just mentioned before.
all sausage curbs, redesign rumble strips and replace large amounts of runoff with gravel and grass to disincentivise track limit violations and punish mistakes, make Formula 1 free to air in the UK once again, stop being sycophants for celebrities and start acknowledging the fans and enthusiasts, make races more affordable, always acknowledge the sport's history and legacy. Think you can get on board with all of this? Join my cause and let's make Formula 1 great again.
You know what, I find it funny that y'all really dislike Donald Trump, but yet y'all using his saying. I'm gonna leave it here. Appreciate y'all for watching. Let me know what you think of my ideas, of my takes on the whole situation, even though, what the fuck do I know, right? It's kind of hard to get a picture of what is going on from the outside. All I know is Formula 1 itself is not in a good state at all. I think I'm gonna end it here though. Appreciate y'all for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Yeah, with that being said, man, I'm out. It's Arden, F1 Raw Uncut. Until next time, y'all. Peace.